Hello, welcome to Human Existence from First Principles. This is episode 4 and it's called Undeniable Scientific Facts. Undeniable Scientific Facts. Okay, as usual, a quick recap of where we stand. Nothingness is definitely not the case. You are having conscious experience of my words at this very moment, and that is a significant departure from total nothingness. Then consciousness is primary. All your understanding of your universe, all your understanding of physics, maths, whatever you understand is a conscious experience, and you've learnt it all by way of conscious experience. And if you didn't have any conscious experience, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't be able to understand or know anything. You wouldn't know that anything exists at all. So conscious experience is primary to all of our understanding and knowledge of our universe. And as we mentioned in episode 3, that's why the words experience and experiment are etymologically the same word. So for scientists to build up knowledge of our universe, they have to go out and do experiments. And that means they have to go out and have conscious experiences of certain limited aspects of our universe's behavior. So consciousness is primary. And then we're also going to work on the assumption that you're a singular conscious individual human, and I'm a singular conscious individual human. And our consciousness is separate. Our consciousness is not one and the same. You hear a lot of talk about that. People saying, "Oh, we're all one consciousness." You have to be very careful with making sweeping statements like that, and you have to qualify what you're saying a lot. It's better to say that we're separate but connected and consciously connected conscious entities. We're not all one consciousness, because then I wouldn't need to make any of these podcasts, because you know all of my ideas the moment I thought them, because we'd be having the same conscious experience. We're not having the same conscious experience. Yours is very different to mine. And if I'm sitting next to you, I can't see your thoughts or feel your feelings, and vice versa. So we're separate conscious individuals, but we're consciously linked to one another by different ways of transmitting conscious energy between one another. Whether it's light energy when I look at you being emitted from your body, or whether it's projecting energy vibrations towards your ear. Okay, so we're separate individual conscious entities, humans, but we are intimately connected. Okay. And we're trying to understand our conscious experience as individual humans on a from in the most basic and fundamental way, as well as in a rigorously scientific way. So we want to base everything, all our theory, all our understanding of human existence, on the most undeniable, simple, basic scientific facts. Okay, so in the previous episode, we established that our experience of reality is consistently scientific. So this is a scientific reality that we're dealing with. You wake up every day and you have to deal with scientific laws and the physical consequences of those laws, such as the law of gravity. You can't fly to work because of gravity. Okay, for example. So, yeah. And science is, if you get sick, you go to see a scientific doctor. You know that the internet works because of science. You might not know the details, but you could go on YouTube and have all the details explained to you. For example, like if you wanted to work out, if you wanted to understand how my words are being transmitted to you right now via the internet, you can learn every single aspect of that process on YouTube for free anytime you want. You can learn binary and coding and programming, learn how the internet works, and so on. So you can learn every single detail. And then you could get a job in an internet service provider and you could check the practical details. Okay, so consistently scientific experience our reality presents us with. And because our reality is consistently scientific, it has allowed us to construct a scientific method as well as to build up a body of scientific knowledge of our universe, and that's what we call science or physics. Okay. And you can see, and the fact that we have a scientific method is proof that our universe is consistently scientific. Because if our universe was chaotic, for example, well, first of all, we wouldn't have been able to come into existence. A human body is not compatible with surrounding physical chaos. We need the stability of the atmosphere and the stability of gravity, for example, to survive. And you wouldn't be able to write a scientific method because things wouldn't be happening according to, for any reasons. It'd be chaotic, there'd be no cause and effect, and you wouldn't be able to write a scientific method. But our universe is consistently scientific, and we have written a scientific method. Now, the scientific method isn't exactly defined. It's basically, you go to university and you study physics until you know how to construct valid scientific theories. And there are lots of different principles involved in the scientific method, such as the scientific method says that the simplest and most logical explanation of any particular problem is the correct one, which is one of the strongest pieces of evidence or theoretical support for my theory of consciousness that we're going to construct now. Okay, but so our reality is consistently scientific, and then we've built up a body of scientific knowledge. Now, this scientific knowledge of our universe is not complete, and it is not exact, and it is not for all time. Newton's law of gravity was a very good approximation to how macroscopic objects behave in gravitational fields, but it needed correcting. So it's not a universal law for all time, because if it was, then it wouldn't need correcting. But it did need correcting, and it was corrected by Albert Einstein, who made it a more accurate theory of gravity that accounted for some details, gravitational dynamics, that Newton's law does not account for, such as famously the perihelion of Mercury. So it's important to realize that what physics actually is a description. You've got human languages, you've got reality first and foremost, and humans evolve within this reality and they become intelligent and they develop languages and they use the languages to describe the reality around them. But the reality around them is much, much bigger than they are. So their descriptions are always provisional and always an approximation. They can't capture all that detail. Your human brain is even all of our human brains put together, is far too small an amount of computational power to exactly model the surrounding universe, because the surrounding universe is so immense. So it's important to understand that we haven't discovered we're not when we look at these mathematical theories, we're not looking at exactly what the universe does or exactly what the universe behaves, exactly the way the universe behaves. These are just our best current mathematical descriptions and models. But they're all liable to change, and they are just descriptions. Okay. And so we have using our scientific knowledge is built up by mathematicians like Isaac Newton, constructing mathematical models using human languages. So, for example, Isaac Newton took words from philosophy, such as force and mass. Those words were quite well defined long before Isaac Newton, and he combined them with mathematics, particularly calculus. And of course, he invented calculus, which is why he's considered he also invented calculus just because he needed it, basically, for his physics, which is is pretty amazing. But anyway, he combined those two languages, the languages of philosophy and the language of mathematics, and he created mathematical physics. And we use mathematical physics to describe different limited aspects of the behavior and dynamics of our universe. Okay. Now, and we've got a great body of knowledge now. We've built up over centuries. So, for example, if you want to understand the movement of a pendulum, that's the dynamics of a pendulum, for example, are very well established, very exact, very precise, and centuries old. Really well established stuff. But not everything has been described successfully, and we don't have a complete understanding. Our science is not complete. So, for example, there's no satisfactory theory of quantum entanglement at the moment. It's still a mysterious aspect of the behavior of our universe. But, as we go on investigating, especially with the physics of consciousness, I'm sure that we will come to some understanding of entanglement in the future. So all that is to say that some of our scientific facts are more undeniable than others. Some are more well established than others. The physics of a pendulum is much more well established than the physics of quantum entanglement, for example. Now, here's the fortunate thing about the theory of consciousness that we are going to construct now. It relies on a very small number of the most well-established facts of human scientific investigation of our universe, which is a good thing. So it relies on the one or two most established scientific facts that exist. Now, the funny thing is, because other competing scientists want to deny my theory, even though they're scientists, they wind up denying, when they debate with me, they wind up denying the most basic scientific facts of our universe. So most recently, I was in a debate with someone and they wound up denying that a human, this is a scientific debate now, we're trying to come up with scientific theories, and they were denying that according to science, a human being is made of physical energy and particles, such as electrons, protons, and neutrons. And well, then you're denying the most basic of scientific facts, and you're just not doing science anymore. So let's just establish the basic undeniable facts upon which we're going to construct an undeniable, simple, logical, and intuitive interpretation, theory of consciousness. It's the first simple, logical, and intuitive theory of consciousness. Okay. So, what is our universe made of? So this, according to science, as a matter of undeniable scientific fact, our universe is made of physical energy. So, for example, if you ask a scientist, let's assume the Big Bang model, because it's the favorite model at the moment. It may change. But let's assume the Big Bang model is the model we're working with. You ask a physicist, what came into existence with the Big Bang? It was the start of our universe. Our universe came into existence, but what came into existence? The answer is undeniably physical energy. Some quantity of physical energy exploded into existence from an infinitesimally small point. What was crammed into the singularity of our Big Bang? Pure energy, homogeneous, no particles. Particles came later. Okay, so physical energy came into existence in the Big Bang. At some later point, this energy formed particles out of itself. How do we know this? Well, because particles exist, and they're made out of that energy. Okay. And then Einstein showed that and it's famously encapsulated in his E equals mc squared, the most famous equation currently in the world. He showed that energy can form particles out of itself, and also that these particles can convert back into the energy. Okay. And then, according to science, there is nothing else so far. And science is also incapable of observing or measuring or interacting with anything else. Every single experiment is an interaction of some measuring apparatus with either energy, that is light, photons, that's pure light energy, or matter, and the matter are these basic particles that are made out of the basic energy and can convert back into that energy. There is nothing else, and science is incapable of interacting with anything else. And this is the undeniable fact, undeniable scientific fact. Like, as a scientist, you become ridiculous to deny this. It's the most well-established fact that everything in this universe is made of energy and particles. We're going to use that's going to be the basis, one of the basic postulates of our theory of consciousness that we're going to construct in the following episodes. And you'll see it's the world's first simple, logical, and intuitive, as well as teachable and rapidly expanding theory of consciousness to ever exist. It's being ignored at the moment because competing scientists don't want to admit that their theories are incorrect. But this is only a matter of time, and it's also very normal. It's exactly what happened with the Copernican revolution, when Copernicus put the sun at the center. So anyway, let's just restate our undeniable scientific fact. Our reality, when we investigate it scientifically, as we have done over the past few centuries, proves to us that everything that has existence in our universe is made out of the basic physical energy of our universe. So, take an example. You yourself are a very good example. You're a human. You exist in this universe. You have physical existence in this universe. And what are you made of? You are made out of, according to science, made out of exclusively energy and particles. Okay? So, if, in high school you would have learnt about electrons, protons, and neutrons. Neutrons and protons can be broken down into even smaller particles, but that doesn't affect the argument. If we take any single part of your body, your fingertip, your toe, your brain, any part, and we break it up into smaller and smaller pieces, we eventually arrive at electrons, protons, and neutrons. The electrons, protons, and neutrons were created first in the Big Bang, and they combine. Well, they weren't. No, sorry. They were created early in the history of our universe, electrons, protons, and neutrons. I'm not sure exactly the order of which elementary particles were created first. And yeah, any single part of your body, if we dissect it into smaller and smaller pieces, we will find electrons, protons, neutrons, and photons, which is energy, light energy. So physical energy we call light, and it comes in discrete amounts of physical energy that we call photons. And all particles, all material objects, are always absorbing and emitting photons at all times. So that's the real sense in which everything in this universe is connected to one another. Like, if you're sitting next to another human, you are in physico-conscious connection with them, because they are emitting photons from their body and you're absorbing them, and vice versa. So in that sense you're connected, but it's it's not a dense connection. Okay, it's a very weak connection, I suppose, compared to for example, how your foot is connected to you. That's a much denser, solid connection. Okay. So yeah, that's it. That's the major, undeniable scientific fact that we need for our theory of consciousness. According to, whenever you are dealing with science, you are dealing with formations of energy. That's all that exists. So every particle formed out of the original energy. Now, particles are different formations of energy. They're not they're not the same formation of energy. So here's a good analogy. Clay is a great analogy for what physical energy is to our universe. You take some clay, you can make a plate, or you can make a cup. You put the same energy into different formations, and then the different formations have different properties. So then you can distinguish two formations from each other because they behave differently, look differently. They have different properties. So you can distinguish a cup and a plate from one another because they're different properties, but ultimately they are formations of the same basic stuff. And that is exactly analogous to the scientific facts of our universe, where instead of clay, we have energy. So you have a clay plate and a clay cup on a table. You could say what's on this table, and one correct answer would be a plate and a cup, but another equally correct answer, and maybe even a more correct answer, would be there's a quantity of clay on the table. Okay, so very important to get that clear, that according to science, everywhere you look, you are always looking at energy. It's all made out of energy, and it comes in energy like photons, which is light energy, and it comes in particles, electrons, protons, and neutrons. But the electrons, protons, and neutrons are always emitting light energy and absorbing it and sending it back and forth between one another. So it's all the same stuff. Okay, so that's the scientific fact we need very clear in our minds as we proceed to construct the correct theory of consciousness for this universe. Okay, so that's it. We need that fact well established. So you look at your finger. That's electrons, protons, and neutrons bouncing energy between one another, and they're made of energy. You look at a table. It's electrons, protons, and neutrons as well. A star, a flower, everything. And it all exists in what we call space-time. So our universe is a bound volume of physical energy existing within space-time. Our universe doesn't exist within space-time. Our universe is space-time. So our space-time is made up of gravitons and flows of gravitons and rates of flows of gravitons according to general relativity. But all those gravitons which are transmitting the gravitational force, they're all made of energy, because all particles in our universe are made of energy. And E equals mc squared. Yeah, so I do need to... I've been a bit long-winded here. I appreciate that and apologize for it, but this needs to be made totally clear so that I don't have to deal with any more silly, debates about whether a human is made out of... what a human is made out of. We just do know, according to science, what a human is made out of. And that we can literally, we have this scientific technology to take a human apart, atom by atom. It could be very expensive, and it would be absurdly unnecessary thing to do. But we have the technology to take a human apart, atom by atom. So we know what humans are made of, and it is energy and particles. Physical energy and particles. And according to the current understanding, there was a big bang when all this particles didn't come into existence. There was just one particle of pure homogeneous energy in a very dense state that we call the Big Bang. But of course, the Big Bang may not be the correct theory in the end. Maybe the energy has always existed. But either way, science has shown that everything in our universe that has existence is made of the same basic physical stuff, energy. Okay, energy and particles, that's all that exists. So do remember that. Basic energy and particles are all that exist in this universe according to science. And then we get to the very interesting part, which is, so then what is a human made out of? A human is made out of the basic physical energy and particles of our universe. But here's the interesting thing about a human is conscious. So there you go. So now that's what we need to explain next. That's the mystery of consciousness. A human's made of energy and particles, and a human is conscious. How do you know a human is conscious? Well, because you are one and you're conscious. But you are made of nothing except energy and particles. So in the next, and I'm sorry for being long-winded in this one, but just to get that totally and precisely clear, in the next episode, we're going to talk about the 3 logical possibilities for the existence of consciousness in this universe. So we're going to identify that there are only three logical possibilities. And then we're going to just define each possibility, briefly discuss each possibility, and then one possibility will be very obviously the correct one. Because there are logical possibilities, and then you've got to check if the logical possibility lines up with the scientific investigation of our universe. And what we'll see in the next episode is that of the 3 logical possibilities, only one lines up with the scientific investigation of our universe, and it lines up exactly. So that's how we know it's the correct postulate, because it will line up exactly and cohere and explain all of our scientific investigation of our universe. So the 3 possibilities for the existence, 3 logical possibilities for the existence of consciousness. Okay, thanks for listening. Definitely check out the next one. Adios.